dramatize this, but that was
Hi, Angel.
Hello, how are you?
You know, many things are good.
That's good to hear.
I just finished getting a crown.
Crown? Oh, that kind of. I was like, okay, oh, that's painful.
3 brutal sessions of root canal and then 3 sessions for a crown. And I just got off the phone with my insurance company and they're like, yeah, no, we're not paying for this.
Oh,
Because you already had a crown on that tooth 2 years ago. Yeah. Probably more information than the rest of the world needs about those, but I just,
but you feel free to share.
yeah. Hey, at least I have access to good dental care, which is more than a lot of people have. So counting my blessings on that one.
That's important.
Is Nobles on this call? And do we have how are we doing the ranking thing? Are we doing a Survey Monkey? Did somebody get that in?
Yeah, we're gonna go over that, but it is gonna be similar to, my understanding is that it will be similar to what was done in the past.
Okay, great.
But we're gonna have a moment to chat about that.
Great. Wayne, you look like you're in the Jersey Shore or possibly Martha's Vineyard. Can't hear you. You're on mute.
I said the latter is correct.
Oh,
Got it.
wow, Liz.
Oak Bluffs, I recognize.
Well, it does have a kind of Cape Ann vibe to it, but Cape Ann and Martha's Vineyard have very similar vibes.
I've never been to Cape Ann. I have to visit one of these days.
It is lovely. I went once. I would happily go back if invited.
I was gonna assume New England, just was not gonna get as specific as the vineyard.
Got it. Well, I'm a Boston girl, so I can identify my Cape and Vineyard spots.
Would you like it?
We are waiting for Eli, who will definitely be on because we just wrapped up a call with
I'm
him.
not sure if I'm supposed to be on this.
Sorry, he messaged me saying that he's finishing. He needs about 10 minutes, so we might.
Do you want to get started then, Catherine?
Yeah.
Please.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry that I'm not on camera. I'm actually eating dinner right now as we speak, but I think can I ask the question or a concern about turnout? Because today is the councilwoman's also sanitation hearing. So
Yeah.
I think the attendance might be split between this meeting and that as well. So
Yes.
I just want to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Yes.
I do want to note that because this is a public hearing, the bar for quorum, I think, is 10 members. So I believe quorum won't be an issue. And while I do find it to be a real bummer that the councilwoman's sanitation town hall conflicts with this, in fairness to her, this is an unusually scheduled meeting. And it looks like she went out of her way to not schedule it for, the night of the general meeting or whatever. It just happened to be October when we have this extra public hearing. So it's unfortunate, but I don't, I don't think I think it was sort of unavoidable. I appreciate that she's having that town hall.
I think Liz is correct. For public hearings, such as for ULURPs, the quorum is, I believe it's 10% of the number of board members, but not less than 10. So that typically means you need 10, and we have that. So
We certainly do.
Yeah, so this is a public hearing, not a general meeting. We have quorum.
Correct.
But what's more important is, do we have the public?
Yeah, we have 21 participants, out of which I'm sure that, how many attendees do we have?
I only
There
see
are-
only
4
have-
attendees.
Yeah, we only have 4 members of the public, one of whom, Pat Courtney, has indicated an interest in speaking.
Yeah, we have to. And then it also, I don't know how many folks that might be watching on YouTube. And it'll continue to be on YouTube as well.
Right.
It's not too bad of a number. How was your holiday yesterday, Liz?
It was lovely. Thank you for asking. It's, this is the time of year where we have lots and lots and lots of holidays. So they've been very nice. I'm glad that they are now over and no more holidays until, Hanukkah.
We still need to go to Ann Lofton's park.
Yes.
You and I got to run the way that how me and Robert did it.
Let's wait until spring when it's warmer.
So I owe you one.
Okay.
So think you guys said we have quorum to call the meeting to order, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's, what is it? 6:38, calling the meeting to order for annual budget process review. Thank you guys for taking the time once again to be present. Your time is important, so we're gonna evaluate and get down to it. So the first question on our agenda to be line is, why do we conduct a budget hearing? And I'm sure that most of you already know what it is, but for the newer members, I'm gonna short answer it the best way I can. The city charter has a mandate that ask all of the community boards throughout the city, all 51 of them, to conduct a board, a budget consultation in which every agency in local CBOs and board members have a say into how the money is going to be spent. If you notice, we're doing the 2024 budget review, which means that the city works 2 years out. It's not a yearly thing because the city likes to or should plan ahead just in case of emergencies like the one we had with COVID. If you guys remember, the city didn't run out of money during COVID because the budget that was used for a lot of priorities was the budget that was approved in 2018. So that's how it works. There's a distinctive difference between capital expenses and capital budgets and budget expenses. Pretty much, the expense requests, they just cover the day-to-day operations, such as programming, supplies, and salaries. And the capital requests, they're just major investments like construction or reconstructions and parks. Usually, Liz is the one committee chair that deals with the majority of our capital expenses, more so than public safety or aging committees and so forth. So she is the person that historically, as far as I remember, has been dealing with a lot of the capital expenses. In other words, Liz, you get the most money to handle each and every year. So lucky you. Having said that, I'm going to try and move our agenda quickly and have our public to participate in the next session. As the rules go by, each and every one of you get 2 minutes to speak, but we'll be a little flexible. I'm gonna start timekeeping now. So do you guys have any names that you want to start with? Have you?
Yeah, sorry. So I have Pat Courtney from Volunteers for Isham Park. And if you weren't able to sign up through the Q&A, feel free to raise your hand if you're interested in speaking. There you go. Pat, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a written statement, so I'll just read it. That way it'll take less time, hopefully.
You guys hear me?
I'm here tonight to respectfully support high priority ranking for a capital project for Isham Park in Inwood. The stone staircases that connect Isham Park to Broadway, key pedestrian corridors to New York City transportation services and Greater Inwood, are in deteriorated condition and remain in need of capital funding, even though the CB12M Parks Committee ranked this project as its top priority in 2019. Volunteers for Isham Park respectfully request that CB12M rank this very needed capital project for Isham Park as a high priority again, since it has not yet received needed capital funding. And I'm going to insert there that obviously the pandemic happened in 2020. Maybe that had to do with it. Isham Park has quietly served New York City through two pandemics. September 28th, 2022 marked its 110th anniversary. Inwood's earliest city park, Isham Park, was a gift from the Isham family. It is well-loved, well-used. Young parents introduce their new infants to nature here. Local teachers from pre-K to high schools bring their students for outdoor exercise. Seniors sit on park benches, talking, reading, or watching children play. Families come to celebrate birthdays or other milestones. Our community makes connections in Isham Park that span generations and celebrate diversity of Inwood and New York City. We hope that you will assist us in protecting this breathing space of exceptional beauty described by then Manhattan Borough President George McEnany when the Isham family's gift was made public 110 years ago. Thank you. And I am Pat Courtney. And 20-year resident of Inwood who started with a group of people, volunteers for Isham Park in 2009.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who is not a CB12 board member who is interested in speaking tonight?
We have Alexander
Alex
Campos.
Campos has his hand up.
Yep, thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Alexander Campos from the Hispanic Society of America, also known as the Hispanic Society Museum and Library. And first of all, I want to thank the Community Board 12 for being such a supporter and champion of the Hispanic Society and on ongoing renovations. I want to say we're very grateful that we've been able to secure an allocation of the city over the past 3 years. That's really been helpful to us to secure the additional funds from private donors. But I also want to remind the community board that this is a $200 million multi-phase long-term renovation of 3 landmark buildings and 3 landmark terraces that serve not only the local community, but also the city as a whole. And so we've been going to city council members, not only in our district, but also the adjoining districts and around town to help us secure this allocations from the city as we try to find the matching funds from individual donors. We've actually started a part of our renovations of the main building with private funding from some trustees to put an HVAC system related to COVID regulations and the ADA lifts to get people from the lower terrace to the upper terrace, all approved by landmarks with private donations. However, the city funding that we have been allocated is for the east building, one of the 3 buildings, and that is a $50 million project. We're trying to do it in 2 phases, 20 some odd million, and $25 million each, roughly. And so even though we have an allocation, we keep on needing more and more. So I appreciate already the long-term commitment of this community board. I just want to remind you that we continue to need more. It's just an ongoing thing because these are historic landmark buildings that have been around for over 100 years with an amazing collection, and we need to open them up. So we're happy to say that we're opening a Sorolla Gallery in the main court this January, again with private donations. And we did the roof already of the main building, but we have a long way to go. And the goal is to make everything ADA accessible. None of the buildings really have any public elevators. So this is going to be a key issue ongoing as we upgrade the most sexy things in the building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, which no one gets to see, which is the whole infrastructure to make these buildings function in the modern society. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex, for your time. We love your place.
So unless I see another hand from non-board members, that covers folks who want to speak tonight. We're a small crew, so there might be things that maybe don't come to mind for folks who aren't board members. And I'm sure as committees walk through items, we'll be hearing more. Oh, we have Tiffany Brown, who's not a board member to my knowledge, so there we go.
Hi.
yeah.
Good evening, all. Can you see me?
Yes.
Or do you just, okay, good. Good evening. I just wanted to say I am the new Manhattan Borough Director in the Mayor's Office for Community Affairs. And so I just wanted to introduce myself to CB12 and to all of everyone that's on tonight. And just really wanted to this is my first community board member meeting that I'm sitting on with you guys. So I just wanted to say hello. And I look forward to working with you all. And if anyone needs my information, I will definitely drop it in the chat. Or if you had anything you wanted to say now to me, I'm available.
We don't actually have chat. We only have a Q&A feature.
Oh,
that people in the public
okay.
have. So if you want to share your contact information, you just have to shout it out and people can make
If you
note.
allow me to, Tiffany, I can give it out since you and I.
How you doing?
It's nice seeing you. I hope your health is better.
Yes, it is. It is. Okay, so I mean, if anyone has a pen, I'll just shout my number out right now for you guys. Let me know when y'all ready.
Ready?
It's 347-939-3984. Once again, that's 347-939-3984. And my email address is TI Brown, like the color, at NYC. No, excuse me. TI Brown, like the color, at cityhall.nyc.gov. If you need me to repeat that, just let me know.
Please repeat.
TI BROWN at cityhall.nyc.gov.
Tiffany, would you mind sharing your title once again so I can make sure I have that correct?
The Manhattan Borough Director for CAU, which is Community Affairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Nice seeing you again.
Good to see you.
Sam's light, Catherine, so we kind of think that this is the part for you. Start facilitating.
Right.
Cool. All right, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for members of the public. We're gonna transition on to hearing from our committee chairs. And I'm actually passing it to Angel. I'll be sharing stuff on the screen.
1 second, I'm just answering a question in the Q&A from Marina. 3984. Okay.
I could type it. I have her number. Did you
I
ask her?
sent it over.
Okay, you sent it.
Yeah. So next portion of our budget hearing today is to listen to our committee chairs present the rankings that they have submitted as a committee on the various projects. I'll preface with saying that thank you to our staff at the community board. We did receive materials on September 30th that highlighted our rankings from last year. And in addition, it also included an update that was called the Register for Community Board Budget Requests that provide an update on the various projects that were ranked. And so our hope is that committees submitted rankings based on, the feedback that they also received from the administration on their rankings from last year. We'll start it off with Parks and Culture Affairs. Each chair gets 3 minutes. Let's do expense first and then capital afterwards, if that makes sense.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to go first, so.
We
I-
can, if you're not ready, I can move on to somebody who might be ready, if that's, if you.
Yeah, if
prefer.
somebody else is ready, I
Okay.
will pull up my. documents first.
Wayne, you're next on our list. You happen to be ready?
I can certainly do it because land use has only one capital and
Okay.
one expense. Are you going to share your screen or how are we doing?
Yes. So Catherine, are you sharing screen? Catherine will be sharing screen and will be showing everyone the information.
And I guess particularly for the benefit of new members, but also for those of us who may have forgotten, if you see CS, that means continuing support. So these are budget items that were submitted last year or maybe years before that, that are ranked. So when we get into the ranking later, we don't need to rank the continuing support ones because they're already in there. So the two items from land use, which are bouncing around, are, were submitted last year and for the most part are, exactly the same. So they're continuing support. For the expense, it's looking at the allocation of planning staff to work with both the community board and with local residents to formulate and implement community-based neighborhood preservation and development plans for Washington Heights. And we say this is exclusive of any work undertaken by EDC with the inward rezoning or other city agencies, because when we first submitted this, the response from the city was, well, we agree with this, but, EDC just did a major rezoning in Inwood, so we don't know if this is necessarily a need. And what, we wanted to stress and did stress is the Inwood rezoning initiative was not something that came out of any community board or community discussions. It was, led by EDC, and we certainly commented on it, but it was not something that took into account the, planning goals and objectives of the community board and community residents. So what we're looking for and have been talking about for years is, in fact, working with city planning and others to follow up on the objectives that both were reflected in the neighborhood planning and land use study that Community Board 12 worked with City College on, and that's posted to our website, readily available to everyone, as well as all of the things we've discussed subsequent to that. So, that is the one expense item for land use. If we move to capital, here again, it's a continuing support item. It's been tweaked a little in that this is looking for HPD or other agency of city government to allocate capital funds to support planning and development initiatives in Washington Heights and Inwood for affordable housing. It originally focused just on city-owned vacant or underutilized sites, but in conversations more recently with the borough president's office, they're also looking at privately owned sites because the availability of city property is not what it used to be. Those of you who are of a certain age remember when there were large sections of East Harlem, Central Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx, that the city owned tremendous amount of property. Those sites have all now been redeveloped, so they're much smaller sites, and all of the new development that we're seeing in Washington Heights and Inwood, are on privately owned sites, but they're working with, city affordable housing programs. So we tweaked this to focus both on city and privately owned sites. And we're looking for affordability to be defined by the average household income of current Community District 12 residents. And, that is a point that if you've attended any of the land use meetings or read the minutes where we're, reviewing proposals that come before us, Many of these affordable housing projects, if you look at where affordability begins, it begins at a level that is much higher than the average income in our community. And it's not just Community Board 12. I think 2 days ago, there was a release for a lottery in East Harlem. East Harlem has very similar demographics and income to Washington Heights and Inwood. I think the average income is around 50 or 52. For that affordable housing project, the lower end of affordability was $73,000. So it's like 50% higher than the average. So we want affordable housing, but we want it to be defined by what is affordable by the people who live here. And so those are the two land use items. And once again, they're continuing support with little tweaks to make them relevant for what we're talking about in 2022 and 2023 moving forward, as opposed to what we were talking about a year ago.
Wonderful. Thanks, Wayne.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, Liz, let's do expense first and then capital, if that's okay with you. Oh, let's do capital first.
Capital,
and
'cause
this
I'm
one
on it.
because
Yeah.
We're already on that as we're
Okay.
sharing screen, so now to move it.
So something important to know about the parks, the Parks Department is they are the only agency, the only city agency that does not have a capital budget. To repeat, they do not have a capital budget. So other agencies have a capital budget and they have these projects that they would like to do, and so they budget them. The Parks Department does not have a capital budget, which means the only way that the Parks Department can do capital projects is when those projects are funded by elected officials, which typically the council member, sometimes the borough-wide council delegation. Borough presidents have a little bit of money. The controller's office sometimes has a little bit of money, depending on the nature of the project. Occasionally, there is state or federal money available for things like, greenways or transportation. But for the most part, the budget comes from city council allocations, which is why the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee has substantially more projects than any other committee. We also are blessed in Community District 12 with an unusual amount of parks land. We have like 10 miles of shoreline. We have 3 historic houses, the Morris Jamel Mansion, the Dykeman House, and the Little Red Lighthouse. We have hundreds and hundreds of acres of parks, many, many playgrounds, and miles of park pathways. So many of the projects that are really important are the kind of sexy projects like playgrounds or more family picnic and barbecue areas, more basketball, renovating rec centers and ball fields and things like that. But some of the projects are these really not glamorous, but extremely important things like making bathrooms ADA compliant, making parks facilities ADA compliant, adding bathrooms. We are all about bathrooms here in Community District 12. We need bathrooms on the Dykeman ball fields. We need a bathroom in the Javits playground. We need a bathroom in the ball fields over in Highbridge Park, the new soccer fields, because they're very, very far from the nearest bathrooms. Our #1 project this year is adding an ADA compliant bathroom in the Javits playground. When that playground was renovated, they left a footprint, an empty space in the southeast corner of the playground where a bathroom could go. There just wasn't the money in that project to fund such a bathroom, but they did leave a place for it should the money become available. We also highly prioritized the Isham Park renovations that you heard about earlier from Pat, and additional renovations to the Hispanic Society that you heard about earlier from Alex. And again, more bathrooms, repairing the Linden Terrace. Most of these projects are really pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to say a word about Gorman Park. That had a beautiful renovation at the upper area of the park. And then we always wanted to get funding for the phase 2 renovation, which would have been the lower end on the Broadway side. And then there was a retaining wall collapse. So right now, there's a project in procurement to fix just the retaining walls that were in danger of collapse. And that will open up the park so that you can at least walk through it. But it's still a little bit of a hot mess and really needs several $1 million to renovate the park. You know, for folks who walk past it, it could be a beautiful area, and it's in a part of the district that has not so, it's in the center, right along Broadway, farther from Fort Tryon and High Bridge to the east, and to the west and to the east. So I think, you know, it's kind of like a family with a mother with a lot of children. I love all of these projects. I wish we could fund them all. If we learned nothing from COVID, other than this, it's that our parks are a vital, vital bit of infrastructure that materially impacted for the better our collective public health. So parks aren't just a fluffy extra. They are a vital public health initiative that keeps this community that struggles with obesity, diabetes, asthma, and many other things, that keeps us healthy. So I beg you to prioritize these highly, even though there are also many, many other very important projects from other committees. And then we have, I don't know, probably a dozen projects for continuing support. Turning over to expense, we have 10 items. The first of which is really a catch-all that basically means more funding, We need, we have a huge budget here in New York City, and I and many others believe that parks should have 1% of the budget and that cultural affairs should have 1% of the budget. So we would love to see just a general increase in funding so that we can have more programming, more PEP officers, you know, more plumbers, more tree pruners, more playground associates, more maintenance and operations for all of our parks. We also still want to see an expense project to continue to develop memorial and interpretive signage honoring the history of Native American and African American slave burial grounds up in Inwood. Enhancing park safety through design interventions, better lighting, that kind of thing. Staffing a center for after-school recreation, which is desperately needed in this community. Increase for DCLA funding, for cultural affairs funding. And again, most of these are pretty self-explanatory, and I think I've probably exceeded my time. So if you have questions, let me know. And parks.
Thank you, Liz. Next, we're gonna go into health and environment. Do we have Steve on today? Catherine, I see you saying no. We are currently in the Capitol. Can we zoom in?
Sorry, we're in expense right now
We're in expense. Can we zoom in?
for health and environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He asked me to. present.
Sally, yeah, I was gonna say Sally's here. I didn't know if you were.
Okay.
Wow, there we go.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm on a news browser company that is confusing me. Give me 1 second, y'all. There we go.
As always, our number one priority is mental health services in the community.
Sally, can you speak up a little bit higher? We're having a challenge hearing you. It's a volume issue though.
As always, our number one priority is mental health services in the community, especially for seniors, students this year because of COVID, and others whose mental health and social engagement needs have been clearly impacted by COVID. As you all know, we lost 30 psych beds at the Allen Pavilion. We're still trying to get intelligence on when we're going to get those back. Our second is a full-time vaccination site for COVID-19 and monkeypox in Washington Heights, and with a satellite or some sort of facility in Inwood. Our third priority is the increase in substance abuse services. As we know, the opioid crisis is directly impacting our community. And so we want more funding for that. Next is increase in services to prevent and treat chronic illnesses such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancer, the same things that would be solved if people went to the parks more. Heart disease and hypertension. The next, the rest you can probably read by yourself, but I don't want to take my whole 2 minutes on expense.
I can go to capital if you want.
Yeah, Sally, do you want to move over to capital and
Yeah,
to go over that very quickly?
I'm running over time.
Right, no, wrong committee. There we go.
There you go.
I only have 4, yippee. The construction of the new district 8M, we've been stuck with this for years, although the fair share says we should be. And so this is just putting it down. This is a continuing. Install green infrastructure. We saw what happened with hurricanes, Ida, et cetera, and we need green infrastructure so that we can divert some of the stormwater from the sewer system and address climate change. Provide additional garbage collection trucks and street sweepers, and finally continue the replacement of hot water mains and sewer lines in our community. And that's it. And I think
Thanks, Sally. Next we'll hear
I'll see.
from,
Sorry, Elsie has her hand up, by the way.
yeah, Josie.
Okay, thank you. Could you go back to the expense sheet, please? I just want to highlight local law 97 that was enacted in 2019. This is to reduce carbon emissions from building. And we suggest that the city will fund workshops for landlords and superintendents in regards to that local law, and why it is important, because we have high rate of asthma in our in our district, and any emission that we can reduce will help potentially reduce the asthma rate in our district. And a lot of landlords do not know anything about local law 97 or local law 87, and there are fines that associates with that local law. So if they're not comply or start complying by 2030, they're very heavy fines, and many of them are not realizing that because they're running on number 4 oil right now. So that's why I want to highlight this is very important to our health, the health of our community. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Eli,
Elsie. I have a hand up.
I was representing Steve and the committee.
Sorry, Sally, can you speak a little bit higher? We're having
Yeah,
trouble
I'm
hearing.
sorry, Eli, in case you missed it, I was representing Steve in the Health and Environment Committee.
Yes. Thank you, Sally. Tanya, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to bring people's attention to what is number 10 on the health and environment expense, and that is number 5 on our committee list. We have an additional element to the this need for more technology and staff to conduct noise enforcement, especially at night. We added in a community-wide education campaign on noise pollution that we find is very important. We know that the federal government has already, the United States DEP as well as WHO have listed excessive noise as a public health issue. And our community being exposed to so many other health adverse health conditions that we've already discussed. That's also on our list, chronic diseases and also COVID. We know there's a correlation between our inability as a community to really fully take care of ourselves when we're also exposed to that. So a community-wide education program would be very important. It can help educate our young people, it can help educate parents, it can help educate the entire community in terms of what noise pollution actually is, how it affects us mentally, physically, and how it impacts people already with disabilities, and our elderly and our veterans. And so I think it's a very important thing. It's something that we added on to that. And I would ask that people also support that as well. And I do appreciate OC bringing up the local law 97, because that was a new addition to our committee as well. That's very important. So we appreciate your support on those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay. Seeing no other hands, we can move on to the next committee report, Housing and Human Services. Is Emily available tonight?
No, I didn't see her in there.
Okay. Catherine, are we currently in expense or are we in capital at the moment?
We are on expense. I should probably say that. I hope everyone can see I've zoomed in on housing and human services.
Well, there we go. Provide more funding for food pantries is number one. Increase funding for free legal representation in housing court, and increase the eligibility criteria for receiving services to 300% from 200% of federal poverty level under the Right to Counsel program. Provide more funding for the home-based program in CB12 to prevent individuals and families at imminent risk from entering the New York City shelter system. Increase funding for more HPD housing code and DOB building code inspections. Next is increase funding for supportive housing for LGBTQ youth. Number 6 is provide ongoing funding to ensure that secure NYCHA building entrances, stairwell, and apartment doors are self-closing and self-locking. And last on the list is increased tenant support specialists specific to Community Board 12 and fund initiatives to inform and educate tenants of their rights. So those are the 7 projects under the expense budget. Moving over to the capital budget, we have 5 projects, starting with provide funding for the construction of affordable, accessible housing for seniors. Number 2 is provide funding for the construction of 100% permanent long-term affordable housing units based on the average median income throughout CB12 to nonprofits, community land trusts, and land banks that are partnered with nonprofit developers. Next is number 3, provide increased funding for housing at risk and transitioning individuals and families. Number 4 is provide increased funding for AEP and PPP programs for the preservation and rehabilitation of distressed buildings in Community Board 12. And last is provide funding for the construction of supportive housing for LGBTQ youth. Not seeing any hands, so we can move on to the next committee report. Concerns of the aging. Is Mary here tonight?
Mary's not in. She's at a viewing.
Okay, so we will do the capital first. Giving myself my 3 minutes as I read these out loud. We have three projects. Number 1 is system-wide upgrade of Community Board 12 area to improve access to connectivity and Wi-Fi. A new project that showed up was renovate as necessary, specifically Star Senior Center and Rain Inwood Senior Center to comply with safety, ADA, and DFTA regulations. And last is provide funding to construct affordable, accessible senior housing. And that last one is a continued support. Okay. There are 5 projects on the expense budget. Ranked number 1, and it's also a new project, is to funding for free Wi-Fi access to seniors in Community Board 12. Number 2 is increased access and outreach to healthy, culturally appropriate food for seniors with medical needs. Number 3 is increase the expansion of the program, expanded in-home services for elderly persons, funding to provide affordable home care, including sliding scale reimbursement. Number 4 is increase funding for senior transportation programs by restoring prior city council funding and expanding access and outreach. And number 5 is increase OTPS funding for replacement furnishings in senior centers as needed. I see one hand up from Wayne.
Yes, and it's not specifically about the 5 items, but 3 of the 5 have tracking numbers. And my question is, and this pertains to others as well, if there's an item with a tracking number, doesn't that mean it's already in the budget and shouldn't it be continued support?
No, the tracking numbers are numbers that OMB assigns to projects. It doesn't mean that they've been funded. It's just, you know, OMB needs a way to keep track of the things that we submit, but it doesn't mean that it's been funded.
Okay, so it means it was previously submitted, they're tracking it,
Correct.
but determination has not yet been made.
Correct. If you go to the email from the 30th sent to us, it included a register of community board budget requests, and that's where you're going to see the lineup between the tracking number and the actual project. And it also provides you feedback from OMB as to what's going on with the project.
If I may also interject, just
Sure.
in the course of reading the tracking number, if you look at it, all of the tracking numbers end either in an E or a C. The E's are expense items and the C's are capital items. And then there's like, if you look at what's on screen now, you've got 3122201918. That 22 is the fiscal year 22. And that last number before the E, that's the ranking that this board gave it last year. So that item that's, you know, 3122091918E, that was Community Board 12's 18th expense item in the listing. So every year when we reprioritize our things, those tracking numbers change.
Yeah, Angel.
Thanks
Quick
for sharing this.
Angel, quick one. Why don't we take a bit of a 30 seconds or a minute mental break and ask any of their new board members like Matsida, Luis Cruz, Ms. Floyd, if they have any questions. Are they lost or are they okay with what they've found so far? How can we help you be on the same page with this process? If there's anything that you guys are missing or not understanding fully.
I'm following so far. Thank you for asking.
Wonderful.
Joel, Kimberly, Luana.
Jacob, we're all good?
All good?
All right.
All right.
So next we've got traffic and transportation. Debbie, are you on tonight? Yes, you are. Catherine, do you mind sharing your screen again so that folks can take a look? So Debbie, we're going to start with capital, and your 3 minutes begin as soon as you can locate her projects. Here we go.
Great. So this year we don't actually have new items. So I'm just going to remind people of a few things that we have in this section. We continue, well, there's maybe been a little progress in sort of elements of it. We did have a community request for the upper roadway of Riverside Drive, which have some very unique issues. And so the reason this is on the capital side is because it's meant to encompass both sort of the analyzing as well as any potential changes. Second, we've got sustainability repairs to 157th and 1 Station. If Maria Luna were here, she and several of our other board members have helped us understand like what a situation happens with 157th Street
on the regular. We keep the ADA compliance for our subway stops on the list. Happily, we've been able to pull a couple off the list with projects that have come online in the past year or two. But that's obviously a huge issue, particularly uptown, given many of our serious, sort of serious topography. And then fourth is a project that technically DOT brought to us, but it's always seemed to be, I think we resolved on it in 2019. It's possible we resolved on it in 2018. But I think there was some grant funding, but for whatever reason, this particular project, its funding seemed a little more complex. So even though we sort of expect it to happen, it does seem like it's a really important project, and we really do want to see it come to fruition. Rehabilitation on several subway stations follows from there. People can read which ones. And then we have a new lighting item at the end. So if you want to switch over to expense, I think that's pretty brief. So in expense, we like the age-old issue in CB12 is the area around the hospital. It sort of ebbs and flows, but there's not a year that goes by that we don't hear from the community on this issue at some point in the year. So we really would like to engage the various, there's obviously a number of stakeholders with a stake in that area. And then just giving, we have proposed modify increased funding for subway stations as it relates to maintenance, repairs, and cleaning. And then traffic study for the 207th Street University Heights Bridge area, which is just going to get increasingly complicated with new development in that area. So that's what we've got.
Thanks, Debbie. Do we have any questions, comments? Great. We will then move on to public safety. Eli, I think you're going to be giving that report, if I'm not mistaken, or presentation, I should say.
Barbara should be there.
Is Barbara here?
I'm
Barbara, are you
here.
with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Would you mind doing the presentation for public safety?
Oh, sure, no problem. Hold on a second.
Wonderful. So I think we're starting off with expense, right, Catherine?
Sure.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
expense.
Okay.
All right, so in our discussion, basically, we were very concerned about domestic violence and anti-sexual harassment programs, both in discussion with the NYPD and our awareness in our community. And so we want to see both an expansion and more funding for these programs, more proactive approach, and improve the multi-agency response between both the NYPD, the different community groups like the Dominican Women's Association and things like that. It's clear. Adding speed cameras, there's this drag racing, this making circles and such, and there have been deaths. I think the two men that were killed on Sherman Avenue in the that were just standing there minding their own business goes to that point. I think another pedestrian was, or some people were injured on St. Nicholas the other day. We need to slow the neighborhood down. I know that some of this depends on the state legislature. So we need to work with Manny De Los Santos and Robert Jackson to make this happen. Expand the mental health and substance abuse training in, again, multi-agency response. The mental health clinical professional staff for the NYPD, they're under tremendous strain. I think the suicide rate in the police departments around the country is well known, and the pressure that they have been under. We want, more funding for professional staff to be placed in precincts and better access for police officers who need to reach out and get help. And we've had fires, a lot of fires, and we need a more proactive approach. We need to fund a more proactive approach within the fire department, enforcing landlords to correct violations, and also to enhance fire prevention and housing. A lot of these fires start with, what do they call that? The pot on the burner. I forget what the expression they have is, but in other words, close the door and things like that. And then generally expand public education on safety issues. So that's the expense.
Great.
Okay. Any questions about that or any comments? Questions and comments, please.
Now we've got the capital up on.
Okay. All right. I think they're pretty straightforward. All right. Under the capital, the emergency upgrade for the emergency response system and geolocations. These are life and death issues, and both to have Spanish language option and also to be able to respond better. There's a very great increase in technology to do this, and we need this upgrade. When you call 911, sometimes there's as long as 15-minute delays to get to where they have to get to. So we want to cut that down. We need in the parks, as we know, we've had some horrible incidents in our parklands, and as opposed to, let's say, 6 or 7 years ago, our residents and people all around the city are going into the parks more. The Greenway has been built up. People are bicycling more, much more jogging, much more people are going into the remote areas of the parks. So we need the FDNY or the police to have terrain vehicles so they can quickly access these remote areas of the park, and to have cameras which can monitor these areas of the parks. Often when, as we know recently, when the rape occurred, the police had to rely on cameras that were placed outside the park. Noise meters, I think Tanya spoke eloquently on the issue of more decibel noise meters. A light tower, the 33rd precinct has requested a light tower, and then these Argus cameras. So that's it for capital. Questions?
Thanks, Barbara. I see Liz has a hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to echo for people that one of the things that happens is there are expense and capital items which we think of as belonging to one committee, but that really belong elsewhere. So Barbara highlighted something very important about safety in our parks. This is something that we talk about in the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee, but it's essentially an enforcement issue, which is why those capital items are coming out of the Public Safety Committee. It's not that Parks doesn't care about these things. It's that we're diluting our voice if we were to have, the same project from two different committees. Similarly, there are going to be, in years past, and I think still this year as well, I think there's an item in traffic and transportation about lighting. So lighting in parks, even though it's in a park, OT thing. So I don't want for people to think like we do all work together as overlapping committees and as one board. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, also in terms of use or enforcement or monitoring, it would be the NYPD that would be monitoring these speed cameras and using the all-terrain vehicles as opposed to park rangers.
Yeah, and last thing, Barbara, on
what
committee ranking number one as far as the additional upgrade of the 311 and 911 system. They might be that they're short-staffed. So how do we include that in? Because the system might be perfect technology-wise, perfect. And yet they might not have enough staff to cover. So I think we should have a way of
Well,
doing that in.
I think that we should have a conversation with the 311-911. I do know that part of the problem is geolocation and response time. I can tell you, for example, when something happens behind my building, Fort George Hill, they still have difficulty locating it. Or for example, when the rape occurred, they were saying, Fort Tryon Park, or they could not locate where the crime had occurred. They finally pinned it down to by Dykeman Street. I mean, so this whole mapping of 30% of our neighborhood in terms of the parkland is lacking.
There sounds like there's still a technological piece here that does belong in the capital budget.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're mugged up in Inwood Hill Park and call for help, they're not going to necessarily be and call 911. We now have good cell service, but for them to be able to find you, good luck. So
All right.
that's part of what we're talking about.
Thank you, Barbara. Sally, your hand is up.
Yeah, isn't there also an issue in terms of the geographic coverage of 34? In other words, they can't really manage the land that they're assigned. And is it time to begin discussions about a new precinct?
Can you repeat what she said, Angel? I couldn't really hear her.
Your volume again, Sally, is a little low.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll speak a little closer.
Thank you.
Also an issue about geographic coverage of the 34th precinct? And is it time to begin discussions about splitting that precinct into two? Because you're right, they physically, they can't find it when they get there, but they can't get there.
It was a big discussion in '86 when we split the 34th into the 33rd and 34th. That was a big deal. I don't know what it would take to then create a 35th.
Well, I think it's worth exploring in the community this
Okay.
year.
So, sounds like a conversation that can be taken up at the Public Safety Committee meetings. Liz?
Yeah, I just want to say that while it's incredibly important, and we've had a lot of conversation around the need for an additional precinct, this isn't really the process for us to do that. We have a lot of needs, but we can't. This is a budget priority exercise. This is not a wish list, and OMB is not Santa Claus. So while it's true that we have many, many, many needs, there are a lot of things that aren't on here, not because they're not important, but because this process isn't about make a wish list of all of the things that you want and throw it onto the budget priorities list.
Exactly. I fully concur with Liz. The proper process would be to, at some point, hold a forum, have a discussion with the NY, first discuss with the 33rd and 34th how they view the issue, and then the mayor's office, and then possibly hold a public forum. I think that would be the process.
Thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see no other hands. So we're going to move on to youth and education.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Do we have Faye Florimon on today?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Good evening,
Faye.
everyone.
We're going to start with the capital priorities because that's what's up at the moment.
With the capital priority.
You've got two projects on there.
Yes, all right, yes. Yes, also, again, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Angel and the chairman and the rest of our Cali. Yes, as you can see, unlike the other previous year, this year we only have two capital items, which is the first is number one is which is basically the same that we have last year. And in this one, what we are requesting is to the Department of Education to provide the funding for the auditorium seating that needs to be updated at PS 128. This is the school that is located on 169 St. Nicholas, just right across the street from the previous Coogan restaurant, all known. And that what this school needs, it's funding to, to actually to fix their seats, that it's a lot of seats that are falling apart and needs to be renovated. That's our first. And the second is that we need an increase in indoor infrastructure. This is the student at the wheel that they already started the project basically, but I think it's still they're waiting for more funding to conclude the project, if I'm not mistaken. So I understood that they are still working in a plaza that they want to construct on 182nd between Audubon and Amsterdam. I know they did something at the annex, which is across the street, some artwork, but there is a lot, that is still pending to do. So these are our two capital project that we are requesting for this year. I'm open to if some of our colleagues may want it, I don't know, but still, because sometimes during this process, colleagues come up with other, recommendations. So I'm open to that. Anything that is good for the community, that is good, especially for the student, I'm very much open and available, to for any recommendation. Thank you.
Do you have a presentation for the expense? You have 45 seconds left.
Yes, well, for the presentation, we have, I believe it's 6 items, if 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 6, yeah, 6 items. Yes, well, this is the very, very same request that we had the last year. Has not changed. We are still very strong behind the idea of having the testing, the water in our district for lead paint. And I think this is something that back in summer, I think it was 2021, some of the schools were tested, but I personally and my committee, we have not had the result on that. We don't have like a concrete result on that. I think this is still pending, but this is something that should be like an ongoing activity, especially because of the risk that many students under the age, either they're sick or under sick. That is quite important that the department pay attention to this, since we have had a previous incident back in maybe in 2013 or 2014, where our committee actually, as a result of the alarm that sound on PS 173. So we requested an investigation on that, and that also was taken care. So from time to time, we really are encouraging the district school, the Department of Education, to put an eyes on this important initiative to keep the water, safe or be tested periodically. So this is our number one in here. We also asking for providing funding to increase support for social and emotional skill for students in District 6. Everything is for District 6 that we are asking. As you know, after the pandemic, a lot of kids at all levels and families, they have been emotionally disturbed. And as a result of that, I think it's highly important that the department and any other agency, city agency, concentrating increasing the funding for this important, much needed programs. We are also asking to provide funding to increase the funding for a number of school counselors. I understand that when Board President Gail Brewer was in office, at least when she was the Board President, that's something that she also support us, and there was a resolution that was passed on that, and they increased the number. But as I continue hearing, the increase has not been necessarily sufficient. So we asking for this funding to be increased, and more council will be hired in our district. So, and the third is for increased funding for class size reduction. This is like an eternal request. I'm not going to elaborate much on that, because we already have been asking for this, for decades, I should say. So I'm going to skip that one, but I really I wanted to remind all my colleagues to be mindful, because we really need, especially now after this pandemic, we don't need a clouded classroom with 30 and 32, students. If we can get something less than 20 is fine. And
Faith,
the
do you
rest-
think we can wrap up in the next 30 seconds?
Okay, how about one? I go to the last one.
Perfect.
So I will combine G&T, which is the Gifted and Talent Program, much needed. The same way we also need teachers that they get to know, that provide the funding to train them so they can, single out, those kids with talents. And last, I hope that our councilwoman, member De La Rosa focus on that million that she is promoting so she can pour some of this funding into this request that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands. And with that, we'll move on to the last committee presentation, which is business development. Joel, I believe you'll be, or do we have someone else?
No, yeah, I'll be presenting.
Okay, wonderful.
Good
We're
evening.
currently in the expense budget. If we want to start there, and then we'll do capital second. I'll give you your 3 minutes starting now.
Sure. So the first thing that we want to do, I think the business training capacity hub. One of the budget items there you see is the Business Solution Center. But if you notice, the Business Solution Center is located in Queens. Us as the committee, we realize how vital having a center like that provides access to loans, access to legal advice, access to programs, grants, things like that. Jamaica, so part of what the committee wanted to do, and this was on our previous budget, was to create a hub similar to the one that is in Jamaica, Queens, so our residents can take advantage of that. Secondly, on our list is designated marketing and advertising space to local businesses. This means that throughout the pandemic, local businesses have been hurt. Bigger businesses aren't affected as much. And one of the opportunity zones to increase traffic and revenue is through marketing space. So as a committee, we decided that we have to increase marketing space. On the third is a physical resource guide and a virtual organization. Originally, this was two separate items, but we decided to join the two items because we need resources, right? We need orientation. A lot of our our constituents are not oriented in the huge alphabet soup that is the New York City government. So we want something concise and something that we could pass around and educate our constituents. Fourth, we have our cannabis education for small businesses. Right now, that 3 adult use conditional licenses, the retail, cultivation, and processing conditional licenses have been issued. And due to the war on drugs, our community was highly affected about this. And our committee decided that we need to continue to provide education for this. Fourth, we need Spanish-speaking health inspectors just for all the restaurants and bars that we have here in Washington Heights and Inwood. Fifth, we need to increase funding for NYC Business Solution Centers, just because if we don't get the first budget item, at least we get some funding for more business solution centers. And lastly, we need to know the impact on what this Inwood rezoning is going to do to businesses, and an educational campaign will do it. Any questions on this?
Those are your 3 minutes. I know we didn't get through the capital, if I'm not mistaken. Catherine, if you want to just show the capital. Joel, you want to do 30 seconds?
Yeah, 30 seconds. So I mentioned the Business Solution Center already. A big ask is a catch-all, which is the weatherproofing, indoor dining, and plaza investments. That's a catch-all. But the one that I really want to hit before anything else is the last budget item. It's a big topic right now. The emergency act for outdoor dining was a success, and the city wants to continue this this project. So what we're trying to do is educate the public on how we're going to do this. There's a great brochure right now online. They're asking everybody to do surveys on what they want. And on the 11th and on the 12th of January, they're going to have a public session. We need to educate our businesses on how to capitalize on this, maybe creating a budget. So one of the things that I'm asking for is having an initiative within the city to educate our constituents on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. So Catherine, I think we can stop sharing screen.
Yep.
I don't see any hands, and Eli, you were going to now be taking over on how we're going to conduct the ranking.
Well, I think that was part of what Catherine was going to do. I would just give them a friendly yes, Catherine.
Okay. I mean, I think it's simple. So we should all have there were no amendments to this oh, there are two hands, Wayne and Liz. Actually, yeah, let me take the hands first.
Are the hands in relation to the last presentation?
No.
No, they're not. Yeah.
It's in relation to what Catherine's about to say.
I have some general comments.
So why don't you say it, Wayne, so that way she doesn't have to repeat it.
No. It's just that based on the clarification from earlier, the two land use items should not be continuing support. They should each be ranked as number one for the committee, because in each case, the response is, further study or speak to the agencies. Although they're tracking it, it's not clear that it's agreed to and funded. So instead of CS for each of them, I mean, since it's our only one, in each case, it's the number one ranked for the committee.
Thanks, Wayne.
Liz is the last one. Oh, no.
No, I have a.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Catherine, do you want to do the protocols and then?
Yeah,
do
so
the
hold on.
questions?
Let's have
Let's
Liz
do
and
that.
Tanya then, because I'm not sure what the hands are 100% for. So let's go.
So two things, there are two really important things to keep in mind when you're doing ranking. One is that there's like 1 through, I think, 56 capital items. So that means you're going to have one item ranked number 1 and one item ranked number 2 all the way through. And if you look at the bottom of the spreadsheet, in very little numbers, there's numbers 1 through 50, whatever. That's sort of an aid so that when you're doing your ranking, you can cross off like, okay, I already ranked something number 1. I already ranked something number 12, whatever, because it's confusing when the board goes to compile these things. If somebody has ranked, 2 things number 17, and they forgot to rank something number 38, okay? Another thing to keep in mind is everybody has different priorities and different things that they think are important. So while it's true that the committees who have particular expertise in that subject area have come together and have made rankings for that committee's items, you may think that, community gardening to you is much more important than a bathroom in Javits Playground. That's okay. That is your right. You should feel free to rank things according to what your priorities are, informed by a larger sense of like community engagement. And the third thing to keep in mind, and this confuses people every year, is sometimes people will look at the form and they will rank things within a committee. And they'll go 1 through whatever. And then they'll rank all the parks things, and they'll rank all the youth and education things, they'll rank all the public safety things. No. For the purposes of this exercise, we are one board with 50-something capital items that should be ranked 1 through 50-something. and I don't know however many expense items there were, but they should be ranked 1 through whatever. And you might say, this public safety thing is the most important, and then this housing thing is the second most important, and then these 2 parks things are 3rd and 4th, and this youth and ed, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. This is a hard thing because all of these things are important.
Thank you for the tips. Tanya and then Sally.
Joel, Corner Project already has a facility, so that needs to come off of your list. So people be voting, ranking it, and it's not necessary at this point. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, great. I thought it was additional funding.
It says funding for a new facility. That can, I mean, you guys as a committee can amend that, but if it's for,
They don't
but it's actually covered, sorry, it's actually also covered under health and environment for their programming, for their service.
They don't currently have a big capital need. They have an expense need. I'm not looking at the spreadsheet, but Tanya is absolutely right.
I just
Yeah.
said that they already have a facility, and so that needs to come off. So, because if people would think that they need a facility, they have a location now. Thank goodness they do. So, just wanted to make sure people are not ranking.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, what is the timing on us submitting this to the city? I have a hard time ranking, seeing 56 plus items and ranking them.
Yeah. So I was gonna get there. I want to, before saying, so one, we'll make that amendment and have, I guess, Alyssa, if you can have Ebenezer send the new capital priorities change so that folks don't rank different sheets and,
All right. So just to kind of like bottom line and summarize, not each individual or each committee's ranking choices. Just like to come back to, I think someone made the point of, I think Liz, that are going to individually give our ranking choices. Each one of us has the responsibility and the honor at the same time to just give according to not just what we want, but our needs, depending on what part of the community we live on. This is a geographically speaking, a big community, 2-3 different zip codes that have different needs. So just wanted 4 different zip codes. Thank you for the correction, Liz. So take this opportunity, learn the process. You might be useful later on professionally for your jobs, and even if you are going to move into politics or public service or whatever you want to lead into. So this is an extremely helpful exercise. Unless anyone else have any further comments to make, Catherine?
Yeah, I just wanted to go in, this isn't relevant for everyone, but let's say if you do work for any organization that is explicitly listed or a state agency, conflict of interest holds here, so you wouldn't be able to rank those items. If I remember, I know Jim's not here, but if I remember that correctly from last year in terms of conflict of interest and ranking. I'm seeing a note from Liz. I vaguely remember last year we were okay. And a note, sorry, y'all. Clearly I'm bringing in wrong pieces of information. I apologize for that. Phil, you can rank. So Sally asks in terms of deadline. So Ebenezer's debt has to compile on the office staff next week. And it's going to take them a number of days to get this together and make sure it's accurate and all that. So the ask is on this Friday evening, end of Friday, to please submit your rankings. If you have questions around the form or if something's unclear, you can reach out to the office staff. So please aim for Friday. If it makes it in over the weekend, makes it to Monday morning, I'm sure they're okay with that.
So to be clear, the only change to what was emailed out today is that we're removing that corner project item from the expense budget.
And we are
I mean,
changing.
Say what?
It's that, and we are
And
also
changing-
changing the ranking on the land use.
Right. Oh, so the other thing is anything that's labeled continuing support other than Wayne's too, don't rank them. They just get CS. Okay.
Is everyone on the committee ranking these or just the people who are here tonight?
Everyone on the board.
Everyone on the board.
Okay.
Is
So-
Eliezer, is there a chance that Ebenezer can send a revised email with the ranking and everything? It's what Liz was just referring to. I'm sorry,
Yeah. Procedurally speaking, the same one that goes out to OMB is the same one that we all get simultaneously.
so we will get a revised email.
That's correct.
Thank you. And when is it due? When should we submit the ranking?
Friday.
Friday.
The Friday. Even
Friday it is.
the deadline is also on the 31st, but we should have our own deadline, so the office has.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Aisha,
In the event that some of the committee rankings are reiterated from the previous year because we decided that we wanted to continue to ask for those resources, but the city had not funded that item specifically, is that branded continuing support or not?
No, to be clear, here's what continuing support is. Continuing support is if a project has been funded,
Okay,
then it would get, we say continuing support, like we continue to support this project, which has been funded. If a project has not been funded, there's nothing to support. We are advocating for it to be funded. This is a priority ranking to get funding for these projects. So we can't give continuing to support to something that has not been funded.
well, put it in simple terms. It has to have a beginning, and then a continuing, and then an end. It has to have been started somewhere along the way.
I just wanted to make sure that the Housing and Human Services items that fall in that bucket are
Yes.
labeled correctly. I'll take a look at it, and if anything is listed as continuing support that is not, then I'll send an email, and hopefully we can correct that.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure.
All of the Housing and Human Services items are ranked. None of them are listed as continuing support.
Great, thank you.
Okay, guys, so wonderful, short, sweet, to the point. I hope that it's been a learning experience for some. There's also been a good exercise for the rest of us. So I'd like to call this meeting for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Have a great night, y'all.
Thank you all. The
Good night.
Yankee won.